가서 단다바도 주어지 체대어디 디이 단단 가랑수 이층 버지기 종마 송앙스 세상 단가수 가르투슈 신요르스나 니간라 신지原点 디수 체티了 도나제의 쇼충 신샤 세상 공자 구도세 구버지준 지지
Now, with regard to, oh, I can hear the Chinese translator. Sorry, just a sec. I have to turn her down a little bit. So all of you, hello again. And before in the last session, Rinpoche talked about meditation on the breath in particular. So Rinpoche talked about, first of all, about the reasons for why we should meditate. Now, with regard to today's session, well, whether we look at our situation from the point of view of living in human society, or just from a private point of view, well, until now we've never been fully satisfied. So there's always been something missing. What has been missing? What have we been missing in our life? Well, we haven't paid enough attention to our mind. We have not paid enough attention to our mental development.
주선신다 지디 단대거라 말한주 생기 뉴바 차상시야 된투요 말해 류기 뉴바 류쿠랑라랑 생기 뉴바 가르요바 디안 주 차상시 된투요 말해 하버도 생기 뉴바디 주 된투요 말해 다 류생기 뉴바 차상디 주 된기 치에도 아니 공자고에디 양샤디고레스
Now, that was the first reason why we should meditate. A second reason is that up to now, we have not used our fullest potential. We have not used our fullest physical potential, the potential of our body. We haven't fully used that. And we certainly haven't used our mind, our mental potential to its fullest. Therefore, we need to fully use our mental and our physical potential. That is the second reason for meditating.
tadi 공자고비 주신 디디치 레치 다 가상 가시슈 자투슈 거지 다디네 공무시 제베 가도디라 개침부디 전생니디 니버드 창시고 그레스 세미발라 네야 미버디 팀베 마쇼르치야 팀베 마쇼르이 딘두 세자 용야티 더 내쳐的세자 니티라 같이 두두기 수자고에 디 자된 개침부치 자고 그랬어 다 개치슈티 공자비 거 개침부치 말다 공자비 거 개치슈 어디니 자리 그랬어
Well, in short, those were some of the reasons for why we need to meditate. And Rinpoche doesn't need to talk about this any further. But when we meditate, there are two aspects that are important. The first aspect is to keep the mind focused on its object, to not lose the object. Therefore, we need the stability, the steadiness of remaining with the object, mentally remaining with the object. And the second aspect is the clarity of mind, remaining with the object with a clear mind. So those two, stability and clarity, are important. And Rinpoche says, not just important, they're most important. They're the most important aspects of meditation. So this is what we mainly need to focus on when we meditate.
다 우르 미니 공자디 간라 우르 네야디다 상로 코야시 요르디 우디 세부진이 샤야디 간데스 용아요레스 우르 세부진이 샤사게 마라베스르지 디 용디 거르 강게치 지고르 디 가레스 로디간라 가산 슈바나신 우르 수요 마레 수 두둥아 수로 주지르 데바나신데 딘데기 수 요마로 디 딘도 우르 카돈 자만데 샤야디 요마로 세상 디 매베 인디간라 디 준도 나란수 온비시베 지선 자야디 슈치다 슈시 하버드 미기 온부다 나야 온부다 타야 온부다 류기 온부기 리젠 장略투에 줘로 이다지 디 나네 지 슈치슈디 미순의 작으면 돼 미기 옹보다 나의 옹무슨도지 세상 디기 지는 주에디 슈치다 취지지네 다 디지스만 한디간라 상로 동에기 구참은 가데비슨도지 가서도 나오디 샤고레스
Now, with regard to breathing meditation, how do we develop clarity when it comes to meditating on the breath? Well, as mentioned before, when we say breath, when we say focusing on the breath, well, the breath doesn't have any shape. It doesn't have any form or shape in the same way as a table, for instance, has. It doesn't have any colors, so it doesn't appear with in a colorful kind of way. It doesn't have any color in that way. So therefore, it's actually not as hard to focus on it. But the problem is we're very much used to using our sense perception. So the eye consciousness, the ear consciousness, the nose consciousness, and so forth, all the way to the body consciousness. And of these sense consciousnesses, the most dominant seems to be the eye consciousness and also the ear consciousness. So those two sense consciousnesses are most dominant. And we're so used to perceiving objects through these sense perceptions or through these sense perceivers. And we've kind of neglected our mental consciousness. We've basically, by being so obsessed with our sense perception, we've closed the door to our sixth consciousness, our thought consciousness.
디네 다디 아주 미기 시베 지선 장야다 나의 시베 지선 장야디 슈 친구유베 다센티라 가리오르스나 다 뒤진 가랑수 내수 다시 제용디 간라 미긴 된도 미기 야보지 통 니지 무슨지 아니 수다 유지 무슨 다시 하고 무슨지 미기 통 아니 안줘라 고야기 다된 힘부 잡고 치러 계셔 다시 차부당 고린 덴바당 딘데지 주체 마부당이 지 시용디 간라 로 안줘라 고야디 다디바 도스 니용디 간라 딘데기 단 다시 하고 쉬고 그래 안줘라 고야디 간다 딘데지 고용디 간라 상류시다 마당마지 다디 쿠기 난준 다시 하고당 수다 야부 유어디당 계전히지 무시에버 디기 딘데기 수다 야부 유어버당 계전히지 무 유어버 디기 미파슈 디기 오네 차네기 내당 뭐마디 수연 두그레 베스나 자자자당 봐 땡케 유어마디 디케 유어마디 마수 센디 미기 시버다 나의 시버기 지스 로에디 슈치다 슈치네 야부 시우지 통디가 다디 시우도 시지 러용도 다디 미기 가르 통바 디유 지는 타신이 루도 딘루기요디
Now, with regard to whatever we see with our eye consciousness, with our ear consciousness, that we follow, basically that they're the dominant kind of sense perceptions, what is indicative of that fact? Well, when we analyze the situation, when we encounter something, so let's say we encounter something, we focus very much on its visual aspects and its audio aspect, in the sense that we judge a situation by how pleasant the appearances of colors and shapes are, how pleasant the kind of sound is, the audio kind of environment and so forth. So we very much judge things by what we see and what we hear. We don't really think about anything else. If it's kind of pleasant to the ears, pleasant to the eyes, we think the situation is pleasant, but we don't really judge the situation. We don't really judge the situation based on reality. There's no guarantee that what we see is actually in accordance with reality, what we hear is in accordance with reality. So therefore, we judge everything by what we see, by what we hear, and consider it to be great just based on these appearances or this perception.
다 영음의 투네 미티기 진탕 오마디 다 연den강라 요래 상류딘도 요래 다나 신기 류기 군주기 투네 요래 ngang gi kunju gi thune yore mune chane gi da guiba da 가르스 월다 지초라 지 네버도 구구유베 카도 딜라 네버 뭐마디 디수톤에 된 거로 단다 연된다 류 군주에다 나기 군주 디수톤 된 거로.
Now, in reality, what is really important, what is really of value, are certain qualities, is the way we think, and our conduct, our physical and mental conduct. So, in terms of the society we live in, this is what's really valuable. This is what is important. Qualities, the way we think, and our behavior, the way we conduct ourselves with our body, with our mind. So, these in reality are the factors that are of value, that are important.
Just
다 간들 쉬에디 카레스나 당아주 공자베 거라 조디 이지 시베 딘도 공자 레슬러 디간라 엄비 시베기 통데 디시 통사디간라 다랑게 월라 만조지 통사주 디기 된다 가르이나 미기 시베 딘데시 통수디 디 다랑 생기 나로로 샤워지신 디간라 생샤지시네 주버 이지 시바 쓰기를 간데 이지 시바디 비제 당시시네 이지 시바기 뉴버디 슈치치 당 보레스.
讲这些
Therefore, what we need to do when we meditate, well, we need to use the sixth consciousness, the mental consciousness, in the sense that we shouldn't take for granted what we see. We shouldn't take that to be reality. We shouldn't see this in the way that we just trust our perception with our eye consciousness, our ear consciousness, but instead increase the ability of our mind to question, to understand the situation. So we need to further our mental consciousness or further develop it.
어디래샤 다 딜라 단다디 디 게시 못 통소 카산디 우르 미니 공디 넘버 2 지제네 자도 나외지레 다 우르 미니 공용디 간라 우딩아 준 타기 나로라 루시디 냥수 용디 거로 어디 양루만 주제딩이 지도 아니 도스 우슈 침부 담바 있는 가수 우디시당 데리다 디 주지 낭신당 진대기 칸바 낭신기 수 라바 두두 디 요마레디 이나 우디 수 차디 거다 우디 수레 롱디 수레 시 루인베 마세 수기 나로라 투제기 수시지 투바다 제베 수시 시당 수라 디세멘다오 송지 송거로 투바다 제베 수 아니 로 딘제 투제기 수 가서 땜에 투제기 수 아니 땜에 투메기 수 시시네 후보다 제버선 투에 루진 신식이 구설로 투딩인데 뒤로 가서 롱디 수용디 가송나 롱디 가두고로 딜라 지번다부지 지 양면나지 렌다부진도 시자지지네 롱스제야디 가두강라 파 가두고로 이공 파자바이나 롱 가두 세전 롱디 수차디 거다 이디 수 주지 낭싱이 된데 도도디的对有嘛的苏恰的个电电啊说他难路了问中用个不定啊说错多金用的多哦大让的他能用的判不出去的大让个先得住嘞是吧先得先生我判不出去的都叔娘是用的讲了我大让了怕当出去都是先下的嘞那迪卡多的了다 딜라 수베 지당네 공자 디강라 산제 종딘데기 공자베 거라 다주 신의 공베 거레디 다공 지거 탄제도 디 산제지 공 신의 공베 거런딘데 제슈 송야디 공자베 거 탄제了 디키 키두고로 디키고고 세상에 디 디디 뒤뒤지 마시면도 디마지 쪼르시시네 디 디셰 슈웨이나 시다마 쪼웨이나 다른 고해수를 시리샤
Now, Rinpoche says the following he feels is important to say. So many of you probably did the meditation after Rinpoche talked about meditation in the last session. So probably many of you have practiced meditation in the meantime. But anyway, when we talk about breathing meditation, in particular breathing meditation, so when we breathe in and out, although the breath is not a coarse type of physical or physical object, it is still something physical, or to use the term, the usual term, it's form. It's not a coarse type of form, but it is a type of form. It's an obstructive form. So we distinguish between different types of form. In general, there are like three types of form. So you have obstructive form, you have non-obstructive form, solid form. So the point being that here, when we talk about the breath is a type of form that, although it's not coarse, but it's obstructed, an obstructive form in the sense that it gets obstructed by other objects. For instance, when you breathe against a wall, the breath doesn't go through the wall. Likewise, if you breathe against a cloth, the breath doesn't move all the way through the cloth or the fabric. Likewise, against a window, if you breathe against a window, it doesn't go through it. So, in that sense, there are many ways in which it's obvious that although it's not a coarse type of material phenomenon, nonetheless, it is something we can perceive. There is a physical sensation at our nose when we breathe in and out. So, therefore, when the Buddha talks about meditation, he gives an explanation, the following explanation, that although it's mainly based on developing calm abiding, it's mainly based on single pointed meditation, but we still need to follow this. We still need to follow these following explanations when it comes to meditating, when it comes to doing breathing meditation or any other meditation. So when we focus our mind,
就是
다 당부 딜러 다 전생 가시지도 딜러스 지부 네 임버 도디스 지부르 세디 다 뭐 당부 제디니 미망부 쇼지 수수긴 되와 강요스의 제시신으로 계시신이 주는 시사 유바제 다나신기지 지무제로서의 참만년도 유바 딘데지 참부샤위에서 말이다. 남부 탄제들의 롱마를 세진에 러투 말에 공긴 유바 슈침부 레딩이 제디 가바 대바이나 공자 두고로 세상 정말 어 시스다
there may have been a power cut.
구对听到吗？
我可以读。但人不见您的声音如果可以再更大声就更好。
看不到是吧？听到可能嗯。路西斯，这多点怕比你要的，多必须路西斯的，路怕这样嘛的现在是，嗯嗯，这个是孤独噻，嗯，孤独噻，下乡的，是孤独噻，但把这个路的越是的，南宫下的眼线嘛，形式这个的，想，但等的，其实基不如这，但叔叔基不这。 수수 지부진에 인벌도 디스 네 인벌도 세 전세 당부지시 다디네 전세 숨버 전세 다니버 쇼고르베 디라 어 다 공제기 미베 유디 송도 시들 리버 상베 취디다니 일러 치치스 어디 송어 시들 리버 상베 취디다니 일러 치치 송디간라 시들 다 수수기 미버디 공제기 미버디 뇌라 리버 상치시네 고 땡了퍼고 호레스 디 통구두사 디마지 통구두사 하지 루시버 실로니 에 실로니 시르 지 구두 디당도 강로 당도 아니 오면 돼 안주기 실로니
Rinpoche says that
안주기
although there's been a power cut, the generator has started. You can hear the generator
아버지
outside.
당도 세상 지들 리버 땡了破呗지들 리버 상배去슬로운 디가 땡了破미버디 리버 땡了破过레스 공원들이 공자세기 미베 윤딘의 진세기 땡了破되지 다 딘데기 지들 리버 상배去디라去디땡了破차네去디다 니 일了치지去디다 니 스거다 니 세디 미버 타랑 일了치고르시 미버 신 담을下送的第几层当局嘛的是我的送过多
Now, the first point, Rinpoche says there are a few points he would like to make with regard to the advice we should follow. Now, the first point clearly states you should stay on your own in an isolated place. So it literally gives this advice, stay on your own in an isolated place. Now, usually, especially in the beginning, well, we like to get together with other people, to talk to other people, to spend some time with them, to socialize, basically. However, we should actually stay away from that kind of socializing if we want to meditate. And of course, it's all dependent on a particular person. But the point is that in general, we should stay on our own, do our practice on our own in an isolated place. And then the second advice that is given, or the second instruction that is given with regard to meditation, well, it literally says, whatever object you have thought about well as an object of meditation, that very object you should pay attention to. So that whichever object you have decided on that object, on that very object, you should pay attention to that very object. Now, here the object is the object of meditation. We need to decide on that object. We need to decide on that object. Think about it. I'll continue later.
去기다 스러로 더디 미버디 땡게 치고 그래스 아야 니라세 치디 뉴바치무치도 지들 리버 상비 취디다 니라세 니 기다디 디지부스로 니라스 취디다 니 일러치시 디다 니 일러치바스 냐기고 니다 니 시주신도 구지진부 여러 디지 다 다랑 일러치네 진송구도 취디다 니 일러치지 로 다 디네 전생 신다시디 디송구도 진대기 미버딜라 로 신나의 양다와 냠바샤네 미버딜라 진짜스 일러치베 가자 센디 다 진대기 미버딜라 미버딜라 공지지네 미버딜라 센테기 센티기 미다랑 생강기 일러치베 일러치지 센다랑기 미디 양년 양의 침버치 양년 양의 일러치 다랑 공배 카도라 디랑 침배 때네 침배 진시 투리워 침버 투리워스로이는 진스 진네 도스 양 셔던르치디 양 진스 도스예지네 생강기 일러치베 센디 일러치베 일러치지스 어디 시디 된다디 생강기 다 rimba sumba dila dagi sini jo sayinba dila jibu inban dodi isi jije and dine chida liver sambe chu dita ni yila chechi se di niba da tsis jebas la urwe tsi niba tsigi juba niba di che da sumba dila sen kangi yila chebe sen di yila chebe yila chechi di sungudo se digi chimba dila sen kasa miba dila chimbe chimba de chechi ne ani 양내 양도 일을 치고 그랬어. 또 다른 일을 치니 진짜 치고 그랬지. 전세 되는 송구도 하다 지디.
Yes.
Now, with regard to the second kind of advice or instruction, well, yes, so it means to think well about a particular object, to really give it some consideration and come to a decision with regard to what object to focus on. And once you've decided on a particular object, you should pay attention to that, and not pay attention to anything else that may appear to your mind when you're distracted, for instance. Now, here in Tibetan, there's a particular syllable that is used, that very object, or just that object, implying that once you've decided to focus on a particular object, it's that very object and nothing else. So it's a syllable that very much stresses the fact that you should focus just on that. And then the next line says, this attentive kind of mind should pay attention to that which is to be paid attention to. So basically, it's saying that with regard to the focal object, once we've decided on a focal object, now you need to pay attention to that again and again, in the sense that you may lose the object, but by applying mindfulness again and again, you return the mind to focus on the object, in the sense that mindfulness needs to be applied with regard to your main object of meditation, your focal object, your main object of meditation. Again and again, pay attention to this object. Again and again, focus on the object. Be mindful with regard to the object. And this is what this line is saying. This attentive kind of mind should pay attention to that which is to be paid attention to. So it's...
sen kangi yila chebe sen tis ro yila chebe yila chechi se ta juba sumba di ta miba di dos chambar che zang ma se diang sungyu sare sen di miba gangla nyen du min du se chine shara che joro su sen di miba gangla den du min du sen di shulu la shon du min du ani xinwa len du min du goba len du min du sen gangi yila chibe sen tis jizang sen kuna kandes nen du se chine lugi suji gi sig warda ta gongjabe kato di la tuanzen song song de chag do meba che meba di gongken ki gongje gi sen ti che sen di meba gang la yabu negin du min du ta ken gi shi jin su ta shara che kin ti sun de ti sunga 지당 센다 만지오지 라요 말와 미디 일을 제긴양 생코랑레 미디를 파신 되긴디양 생코랑레 센디 미바강라 디기 두무두 따긴디양 생코랑기 차시 차고로 레디 디송디 강사 송송의 시시시 미바치 디공 이게 센티체 센티기 미바디 양내양의 일도 스템버치 로 양내양의 일을 집에 일을지 디다 냔둘라 센티 미바강라 네기도 멘도 센티 가레치 수미바디강 다다 덴도 멘도 오디 디송규에서 계신부지.
Therefore, with regard to the third line, so this third line of this mind that pays attention, this attentive kind of mind, paying attention to the object to be paid attention to. Here, with regard to paying attention, that third kind of phrase of that mind paying attention, well, this refers to the mind being mindful, not losing the object. So being mindful of the fact, or mindful in the sense that it should stay with the object, pay attention, should pay attention, is the object still there or not? What kind of other states of mind arise? So is there any laxity or as it's also called, mental sinking? Is laxity, mental sinking at work? Or is there excitement? Is the mind scattered and distracted? So which kind of mental obstacles have arisen? And in that way, the mind needs to be very attentive, but actually there are the kind of three kind of functions at play here. So to focus the mind on one object, to be mindful, and to apply introspection. Now, of course, they're all part of the mind. It's not like that any of those are non-mental. No, they're all mental. They're all part of consciousness. However, they're like different functions, and then that way you could say they're like three different people. You have, first of all, this aspect of the mind of focusing on a particular object. Then you have the aspect of the mind that is mindful, that recollects, that remembers the object. In other words, well, that is mindful, therefore. And then you have the third aspect of introspection that continuously checks, am I still focused on the object or not?
다 딘데기 미바티라 센낭로라 샤데기 미바티로 미바티 슈르기 무부 다랑 따데디 말다 센나샤 미바티라 센티라 데네 짐베송야다 아니 수진에 센디티라 년도면도 따야지도 딘데기 제디 디더도 슈바 디 레망드 로 레망드 제바스 다 공도 제 딘데 공자 단디 디더도 슈바스 다 딘데 징이 디스고 딘데 제디 레망드 제바 레망드 네바 레망드 제바 디라 류신의 장바의 센신의 장바 용그레스 용와 강인바티스 다 딘데기 류신의 장바의 센신의 장베 대화체버진 레베 카토딜라니 신내 토바 시샤오스 딜라 신내 시샤오스 이진다 공제변 주당 차장지 찌디디디나 송구도 로 디더도 슈바스라디 공도 쉐기 유당 센트에 디제 센디 아부니에기 도문도 따야 딘데 제디스 다 레망도 딜라 레망도 네바스 딘데 야니 다리공 산이공 나니공 다리네 나두공 니공공 시두공 두스 레망도 네바스 딜라 류신의 장바의 센신의 장베 대화체버지기레 신의 장바 종화 디니 아니 신내 시샤오스 다 딘데기 시장기 대화체버진지 선배네 그 띵인지 딜라 니 신내스 그레스 딘디 송송 다 디리다 공 상제정린 되기 공지진 두기 나로로 송요 때 공방 이번 주인도 가서 셈이 공지진 두디로 셈이
解生灭
생치에
尽。
제성미지
Now, with regard to the focal objects, so the mind keeps focused on a particular object, and that object is not something external, but it is the object that appears to the mental consciousness. Now, then, of course, we apply introspection, and in that way, being mindful and introspective of the object, we meditate. And the instructions continue. The fourth kind of instruction is basically having engaged in what was explained before, we should do so again and again. And in that way, we attain. So if we do this again and again, and then in that way, we will attain calm. We will attain calm abiding. We will attain physical and mental pliancy, through which we attain the physical and mental bliss, which leads to calm abiding. So basically, these words, what they're explaining is, well, first they give the instructions, the first three instructions, as mentioned earlier, and then it's saying whatever has been said earlier, these first three instructions, when you engage in those and you apply them again and again through repetition, so through familiarity, then a special physical pliancy will arise that will give rise to a special mental pliancy, which then in turn give rise to a special physical and mental bliss. And these then cause calm abiding. So this explanation here is given in the sutra of the sutra on meditation or
了呗，的确当你的确恰当当你接同你经那都是心结为那你定眼睛的切龙不的用过的是，他的开起木恰越是嘞，都给囊路了，别觉技能的送过多，俺们人呢，那俺们人呢，俺说米巴的讲了，扎架死给他，可是我说米巴设计要了，他都送着你以为呢，的打过了，打起些呢，米巴也的打过了，他打就讲了。아니, 다 미자디라, 자디는 도스, 다지 미바디간라, 슈침부 다니 다사지라, 다지지니 미맘바 바드, 다구그마도, 티마지 달, 디샤, 양, 추지지지라 양치 달, 디샤, 미자니 봐요, 말로. 세상, 디, 미자라 미다, 디, 민바야기 체든 도스, 다르비 카토라, 고, 다르지지니 맘바 바드, 도스, 자자디 미자디 다 니용고로 두순다디 미자디가 다 못해니 다니 맘바바도 두스 다구 다르치지 미바고고로스 오디 빌러샤시시니 띵인지 공디 오텐데 제고스도 다 띵인지 미세기 디징이너다 공제니 디 제버이나 딘데 제제 다 단데네 거는 아주 다리 공디 뒤준도 공자발라 timba 야부 진시 야부면나 timbe 뉴버디 야부지 메버이나 공제 두고 마 세상에 라 timba 야부 수행시도 timbe 뉴버디야 슈치르 동행시도 아니 다리기 공치디 지고다 딜라 주어다 되바다 네바다 강기 거수야 딘데기 공디 가드이나 제도 timba 템바 다랑 공기 된다 순리실 순고르다디
So what Rinpoche, these instructions Rinpoche just gave, these kind of 4 instructions, basically, they're based on the sutra of the commentary on meditation. Now, when we talk about meditating in such a way, well, what is explained here is similar to, or when we meditate, the way we should do this is similar to, for instance, lighting a fire. Well, in the olden days, at least, like the way in the past, people like the cave people living in caves and so forth, the way they lit a fire was by using certain stones and rubbing them against each other, and through that sparks would arise, by which we would then light a fire. But in this process, like when you try to light a fire, it needs to be this process of rubbing the stone against each other. Well, that needs to be done frequently. It's not enough to rub the 2 stones against each other and then take a break for an hour and do it again and then hope for a fire hope for sparks to come forth. No, this needs to be done repeatedly. It needs to be a repeated process of a process that you continuously do. So therefore, here when we talk about meditation, or when we talk about generating meditative concentration, a certain level of concentration, we need to do this over and over again and shouldn't take long breaks in between. Now, this, of course, is with regard to developing or cultivating calm abiding, cultivating a certain type of meditation. But in general, mindfulness is important. So to be able to successfully meditate, therefore we need to first work on our concentration, or on our mindfulness, so to enhance our ability to be mindful, to train in that ability. So whether we're walking or we're walking, we're staying, we're eating and so forth, whatever activity we engage in.
但绿了米呢，地广一点的，他说是，丁恩在学过的呗，但绿了米呢，绿怎么两下，几天不顺着去，查过的，第绿了米呢，都是的，最近难路了，米都不公布交了，他第了比浪起行，第的工资基本几项起行呢，绿了米呢，公节几节，但第节吧了，俺都，俺拿出去，绿几年当当。咱那些新的年代，感觉都经验大过了。
Therefore, in order to enhance our mindfulness, So in terms of the different activities we engage in, such as walking and so forth, well, the first step is to focus on the body. The focal object in the next explanation is the explanation that will follow is the body itself. So here we're talking about a similitude of mindfulness, the foundation of mindfulness of the body, of the 4 types of foundations of mindfulness. So the Abhidharma-kosha, for instance, talks about the meditation that focuses on the impure aspects of the body, and that's what we follow here. So here we're generating mindfulness of what's happening in the body and in the mind.
This one. Okay. Time is new.
Can no longer hear Rinpoche. Anyway, Rinpoche said, so as part of this meditation, we watch our own body, we watch our own mind, and become mindful of what's going on a physical and a mental level.
听到我的声音吗？
可以。现在有。
为什么我休息的听着？
Sure, she said that a lot of power cuts, so weird.
记得，俺了苏的，都是，长不起，也真大的上司，去学过了，也真都是谢谢你，刚把的就考上学个那些去，刚的第一期的下一些，不过呢，都集中是了下一期，那今年，今年的，记得，俺当时先也看的是。点点多，生个囊路人咱们人都是感觉下跌多，提起略进行的跌，它的跌呢，它生囊路了都是囊多咱们的毛不都是，囊咱们的，云咱们的都是下跌几档，看到深度是俺说啷个了，就下略的讲了，就下略个个俺说，略个年当小了，速度是初步恰的，是不是？我顶这说这些3点啊，娱乐就呢，都是顶这些速度就下略微个个速度，那的这个是了呢，这个月里面的，刚才速度顶这初步恰的说，顶这说这些，顶这一个恰的越位呢，那你浪上公3米把了年的靠不起我了，现在电影的讲了，俺啷个说弄清了拍的谐音是。
好，那我刚才讲到呢，在观修之前，我们要先观察自
Now
己
with regard to
身
the actual
心的状
practice,
况，所以
well,
呢
we should
大家
adopt
先把我们的身体
a
呢做
particular
好。就
posture,
像我
so
昨
a
天我跟大
particular
家讲
physical
到的，你
posture.
身
She
体应该
spoke
要有
about
的
the
坐
7
姿，
points,
那你的脚呢，
or the
昨天
different
提到，如果
physical
可以的话，就
aspects. We should
结
adopt
跏趺
those
坐；若
as
不
part
能，
of the
你
physical
就是按
posture.
照
So,
你
for instance, to sit
可以让你
cross-legged
觉得舒服
as
的
best
那
as
样
we
的姿
can,
势啊，你先摆好 你
as
身
far
体
as we're
的
possible
姿势。那
physically
接
to
着
do
你的
so.
看一下你的
But
心，
then,
你
having
的心呢
adopted a
在
particular
想
posture
什么？
now, we
你
should
的
watch
心
the
呢跑
mind.
出了什
What
么？
is going on in our
稍微
mind?
看一下。
What is
那
our
如果你
mind
发
thinking
现你的
about?
心
What
里
is
面呢
appearing
就
to our mind?
出现了很多
Now,
很
in a
多
very
的
calm
念头，
way,
或者
we
是
should be mindful
跑
of
进来
what's
很
happening
多
in
各
our
种各
mind.
样的这种
So
影
usually
像。
different
你的心
thoughts
的状况
arise,
就好像
different
比如说你
objects
在跑
appear
步
to
嘛，
our mind,
你
to
在路
our
跑的时候
consciousness.
呢，你的
It's
身体那
like
时候是
when
很
we're
忙的，对吧？你经
jogging,
过
our
一个又一
body
个、一
is
个又一个的
racing
这样子的
through
风
the
景，你的身
streets
体。
and so
那你的
forth.
心
Well,
现在，如果你发
similarly
现你的心
here,
呢，就好像
our
你的身
mind
体一样
is
那么忙，
racing from one
有各种
object
各
to
样
the
的念
next. So
头
we
啊，
can really
你
say
显
our
现展
mind is
现
kind of
想到
running,
各
our
种各
mind
样
is
的影像，
racing
在这样的
from
状况下呢，
the
你
two
是没
different
有办
objects
法
or
好
from
好
one
的安
object
住
to
在
the
待会你要
next.
修的这个所缘
So
上的。所以如果
therefore,
你发现你自己
first
的
we
心的状
observe
态是这
the
样子的话
mind,
呢，
we
你就
observe
要透过
what is going
调
on
整你
in
的
our
呼吸，
mind,
透
what
过
are
呼
our
吸
thoughts,
来
what are
调
the
整你
objects
自己的那
appearing
种
to our mind.
混乱的
And in
心。
preparation for that, we should kind of
这是
calm the energy winds in our body.
弄强了拍第一， 어, 심바 디디 수고를 심바 당용 바치다 sen loma tingi ngola pa jutu war sen loma tingi ngola yube kola di gyola tangnare mi gyola tangnare tang chu chu chi cha goro
那我刚才说呢，透过
So, in order to calm the energy winds in our body, well, with regard to doing so, first we should adopt a mind that is neutral, that abides in a state of equipoise, of mental equipoise. And once we have such a neutral mind, well, the mind can be changed to a virtuous or non-virtuous mind.
아무도 다 니네 맞아 농창을 파야 된다 농창을 퍼백하도
好，那
뇌를
是
지치는 저기도 예네 지난주 알았다네 지난 저기 당부디 강들
So you should watch Rinpoche now. Rinpoche says, first watch me, what I do. So
예네 유네 군흉부 지신의 죽음도 뒤에 망치오지 이거 말을 세다 딘디 강라 도시 미디 中国 말에 미 중요해디 단다 가서 미르도 나게 맞은这个是当西马总数的些个当地的是呢因人不及公家的到底国地切国了托马定义子周围个
So, first of all, just watch Rinpoche, but the point is you can see Rinpoche, see what Rinpoche is doing. So usually our breathing is not balanced. So in order to bring about this kind of balance, well, don't pay too much attention to your eyes, Rinpoche says. Don't pay too much attention to that, in the sense that you should keep your eyes half closed actually, and for long times, if you meditate for long periods of times, it's good to keep your eyes half closed. But the point is that you breathe in first through your right nostril while closing your left nostril and so forth. So you can just watch Rinpoche the way he's doing it. So 3 times breathing through your right nostril while closing your left nostril, and then breathing as you breathe out, you close your right nostril and you breathe out through your left nostril. And then for the next 3 rounds, you do the opposite. You close your right nostril, breathe in through your left nostril. And when you breathe out, you close your left nostril and breathe out through your right nostril.
윤이 예를 송지 디 우당디 강라 센디 우강라 다 샤투고 그렇지 아 니가네 뭐 니가네 동해들
So you do this 3 times each side. And then for the last 3 times, well, the mind, of course, should be calm. Your mind should be focused on the breath as you're doing all this, should be calm. And then for the last 3 rounds, you breathe in through both nostrils equally in and out.
이거 니가니 니가니 양우 니가니 맞동디 강라 라반딘의 지구교지 말다. 너디나 라반딘의 징인도 디가르래.
So when you do the last 3 rounds of these 9 rounds, well, you shouldn't close your nostril when you breathe out, but some of you may have closed their nostrils, so there's no need to do so.
음.
You
다
don't need to close your nostrils
음.
with your fingers
디송. 다디
for the last 3.
신랑 르르 샤윤 디간라 신 로만팅이 ngol은 주토야기 디르어 디요레. 다 신 로만팅이 ngol신 당뇨 순르치. 신도 뉴부 샤윤 디간 다 디딘도 아니 다 르르 미닝 가서 정말 샤 슈웨이나 르르 미닝 공제 디치 디치 제인스.
So once you've calmed your mind in that way by doing the 9 rounds of breathing meditation or the meditation on calming the energy winds, well, once your mind is calm, then it should adopt like a neutral state. That is the kind of goal, to attain a kind of mental equilibrium. And when you've done that, you start with the meditation of the foundation of
다
mindfulness, focusing on
담부디라
the body.
제나로라 다 인지도 미도고 공부티레 다이나디 카푸니 제주에서래 그래서 디인디간라 녜랑아랑수 민상요랑 민상스런디가 단다 미마 분위기 지디라 민상스로 녜라 민상스 미마 죄부여서기 상태로 상제 있는 디란 죄부여로 다 민상기 테라 심바도 수수기 민상기 테기 류기 차셰디라 신도 대치시네 녜라 민상 테기 류기 차셰디 일러치.
Now, the meditation that Rinpoche will describe now is found in the Abhidharma Kosha. However, it's actually, strictly speaking, a meditation on the impure aspects of the body, but it can be also applied here to this meditation. Anyway, you should focus on the center between your eyebrows. So between your eyebrows, the center of that, which is sometimes described as the area of the third eye, just focus on that spot. So focus on the spot between your eyebrows. Pay attention to that spot. Become mindful of that area.
이네 인상자마이바 저차상 라시미지.
And then don't just pay attention to this area between your eyebrows, but pay attention or focus on the your entire forehead.
이네 준비도 스미부다 미티솔라 미에지.
And then slowly spread your attention, spread your focus to your eyes. Pay attention to your eyes, to your eyebrows, and so forth.
제와당 미마다 제와당 미다 디솔라 미비 고수 수수기 수위 차셰 기 제와당 미마다 제와당 미라 미유 상마치마도양 미지지부지 수된니 미에드네 말다 수위 차상 수위 차셰 임비 미마당 가서 민상당 제와당 아니 미기 테기 수비 차셰쇼 딜 미유 상 수부지 코디 수부지용 그 코주어라디 든지라바장 라렌장시 루르 샤유 토네 아니 디기 차셰수 주베 민상당 제와당 니미기 차딜 미유
And so as you focus in the way Rinpoche just described, it's not like you're actually using your sense perception and look at your own body, but it's rather a kind of internal awareness, a mental awareness, an awareness or a sense of your mental consciousness that your forehead, your eyebrows, the spot between your eyebrows and your eyes, well, they're part of your body. There's that sense. You have a kind of a rough sense of your body in general, but mainly focus on these areas, like the spot between your eyebrows, your eyes, and so forth, as like part of the body.
대가다.
And then your attention widens to the area around your nose.
나기 찼어 그래.
Pay attention to your nose.
가당 멜리에서 수북이 동차상지.
Then pay attention to your mouth area, your chin, and basically pay attention to your entire face.
상구차상 나토스미 실려지.
And then be attentive, be mindful of your entire head. Your entire head, you're mindful of your entire head.
이네 준비차.
Then are mindful of your throat area.
장기차.
Be mindful of your chest area.
전부 인식이 수북이차.
So basically, you're mindful of your entire upper body.
어디네 닌가 쓴디로.
Then pay attention to your heart area that is at the center of your chest.
띄워가도.
Then your navel area, your navel and the area around your navel. Be mindful of that.
라바니.
Then pay attention to your arms.
이네
Be mindful of your arms. Be mindful of your legs.
이네 마 신바. 감베 신바놈이.
Mindful of the lower part of your legs, your calves.
야리디. 이네 마 감베 디. 마수 감바 오라.
And then pay
감베
attention
소모유스기 봐도. 강티기 봐도.
to your feet all the way to the sole of your feet. So pay attention to your feet as well as the sole of the feet.
류기차. 수수수 디소라 인즈무시라. 네기 우주 마제버시. 르르지진이 데스네 디고치. 진디. 이거. 난디네 감베기 다 나수 감바랑 살마 수야기 감바 강티티네 야 준비 감베 표공스기로 디 치치요 바디 감바티네 야용 수부지 코디 유베 토네르다 지 지 나와라바디 유베 딘더니 감베 감바 마살라 샤야기 이 감베 티티네 야 도스 니 감베 표공기 바도 미에지
And then
강배 티니야 강배 표공스는 치지민데 지도도 줘봐 인다고지
투텐 레베 단다
야 용네 다양 야
야용으로 당나 마주어 당나 야용 라
이제 만용찬 만주찬다
그래서
갈류양 야
그래서
So, with regard to your sense of yourself, you should have a general sense of your body at the same time as you do this meditation, but don't force it. Instead, keep your mind very calm and in a very natural kind of way, focus on these different aspects of your body without losing your general sense of the body. So now you start with the lower part of your body, pay special attention to the lower part of your body, starting with the sole of your feet and slowly moving upwards towards the upper part of your feet and the joint, the joint at the side of your feet. Pay attention to these areas, slowly moving upwards.
진이 야 감베 냐리라 또 신샤지
Pay attention to the lower part of your leg. Slowly move up the lower part of your leg.
진이 비모다
Then your knees. Pay attention to your knees. Your thighs.
진이 야 띠워기 티가미
Then pay attention, that is, be mindful of the navel area.
진이 야 인기 봐도
The chest area around your heart.
진이 야 장기차
Then pay attention to the upper part of your chest.
있는 짐바지
Then the throat area.
진이 멜리니 손딘도
Then your chin, slowly moving up. Be mindful of the area around your mouth.
진이 나기 차지나
Then the area around your nose.
진이 미기 어디
And the area of your eyes.
배워지
The area of your forehead.
뭘로 뒤에니 아부터 괜찮 진이 한마디 민상란도
And then lastly, pay attention to the spot between your eyebrows.
근데 지 생르르 지지니 심벌르르 지구에디 계신부도 어 도스 미발라 가서 생对别个了的结果嘛生修就真的就修几俺这操顺的些没不的别没得吧那些谁不谁想起码几件去下个民都上吧的样的没不讲的也不第一民都上吧的结果嘛没不的没不啥不的嗯 di sungpa rwa tanda thuma nga su gongbe kato di la mipa di sela misi silawa ina kandar chi rapa zangshi ma to rwa chi bong mi sikiri ta chi dang bambu sunda chi cha tsang rang pe sewa seja me deba che yang ji sen nang lu la sha ju ji yue deba che dinde gi chi dang gi ko sunda chi pe na nga su sa rula ma rula ge la sa be de nang guan nang jiang cha ma ca ba xie ni yang be de be ni mi yue dan dai yue din de xia ji se bu se jiang me ba xie din de yi gou su 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 da do ta ni bu yue be sa le mi ji le ba yin na mi di ji dang tong ba kang xi ji le mi dang an ju dang han dang ka ji se bu ge tong guo ma ra ji dang gi ji ko sun de ji ma do ro 框架嘞，顶这起码都给通过嘛咯。现在我顶这顺的起码都俺说山上路了给，但他下多嘛嘞，喇叭脏水，我顶这起想的这个我，顶这起下我的了，去什么的真气气呢？多些呢，这个我，但迪卡多了，卡水突突给这的，卡水突突给生活当，国外生活的嘛当不起，生活的国外干起去，我都是。 가수 투두 제바이나 다랑 긴지디 거다 레 당부 비네 거라 다 디이 주인디 무트니 장윤디고 야도 거로
What is really important is to keep the mind calm. That is so important, to keep our mind calm while doing this meditation. Now, when we focus our mind on a particular object, it's important not to get stressed out, not to be uptight. So to be stressed out about the object not clearly appearing, or to be stressed out about the object not remaining, the mind not remaining focused on the object, lacking stability. So we shouldn't get stressed out about it. We shouldn't get uptight. We shouldn't tighten the mind in such a way. It's important that we keep it calm and just have a general sense of the object. So it's said in the texts, there's an expression, it's like clear, not clear. That's kind of the Tibetan expression. It's kind of medium. It's not really clear, it's not really unclear. It's kind of in between, to have a rough sense of the object. So just a general kind of appearance of it. That can be compared, for instance, at dusk, when the sun is no longer visible, the moon hasn't arisen yet. So at this moment of dusk, when you meet another person, you can just kind of see the outlines of their appearance. So this is the way the focal object should appear to you. Just have a general sense of the object. Just have a sense of the outlines of the object in that way. So this general sense of what the focal object is without getting uptight about it not appearing clearly and so forth. So if you can, of course, as best as you can, you should also pay attention to whether there is any laxity, any mental sinking, or whether there's any excitement, whether there's any distraction in your mind. Anyway, in that way, do whatever you can as best as you can. And for a beginner, that's okay. And then based on doing it this way, well, you continuously practice, and slowly it'll improve. The object will become clearer and so forth.
不多。
这
但等待我做都是米不了先对别卡多的了，先都是米不讲了下下的，故新年一吃，嗯，新年主要的那不地讲了，用过的那不的，谁不记起呢？米不讲了年纪多，那边吃的，那边吃的做新年的，的军着去用过的做的。다 미버딜 네디 가는 가수 미버디 세부 지신 샤야다 미버디 카르제세다 미버디 음 미버디 얘기 차카린 윤기 차카린 시도스 지 미버츠 세부 시위 샤야라 나시해 줘로 다나시 미버 코랑기 고 카린나스 미버디 에 간덴다부치 데나 간덴다부치 바기 내외나 상상 딘데기 상류 토네 미버디 제대로 내외be 수다 애니미 뭐 고랑기 소다기 차티 수제디라 도나시네 디 윈스 진더 제네 아니 윈 진더 제용에 디 미벌 네베 토네리다 미버디 네당티 수제디 윈 진더 제디 시력이랑 신 차인 거다 쥐버 제디 로 쥐버 제디고 제베 제베기랑 신 시력이랑 신 디엔디간라 하동기 주체인 거디
Now, when we focus on the object, when the mind is focused on its object, well, remaining with the object, that is the cause of calm abiding. That kind of steadiness, that kind of remaining on the object is mainly the cause for developing calm abiding. Then, on the other hand, when you are focused on an object, then there is this aspect of analyzing the object. So when you analyze the object, what is it? What are its aspects, left and right? In other words, what are its different parts? What is its actual nature? What is the nature of the object? Where is it located? How does it exist? What is its form, its shape? So, in other words, identifying the object, that is basically the function of wisdom, this analytical kind of aspect, which is the main cause for special insight.
第一地讲了线下边看多了年岁提出这的起码难过过的但单东样起码难过也给真正现代的忙不用的是吧都是用的几个公家给这地讲了条忙不利用的苏线上路了条忙不利用多忙不利用的累些地讲了多把的连的菜系些呢不是不属于都是么呢那忙不进呢公家为各个刚刚忙不起公文是加些些真新闻是电气些呢都是娘娘文是属于前年用的讲了你西呢公家为巨人给囊络了文是属于旅行给拖了刚刚当阳明的娘娘社会的文是用来小了但地主这的真这个公家个巨人的文是个做呢用来几当但的用被卡多的了第一年的忙不起变得我说让人清明囊络了新年给过的还来为接不住的是吧还来为接不住但第来接为新年给凶新年公催当新年给但就当大拿新给新年准备去洗澡休息送用个多现在但的确囊络了连忙不起啥用个来上个多但连忙不起叔叔娘娘啥用的刚过啥用过的那连卡几呢娘经济拉面蛮多是提用的讲了，古上了娘种啥玩意的讲了样，第一品图用过的。
So now when we do this, when we engage in that kind of meditation, when we engage in that kind of meditation, sorry, I'm just having a problem. So it's important, just a sec, I'm facing a little issue here. So when we do this kind of meditation here, what is important is that we, excuse me, I'm having a problem. So anyway, the point that Rinpoche is making is that when we meditate, it is important that we actually engage in the practice itself. We engage in the practice in the sense that we do it we focus on an object, we engage in the object in such a way that we are totally focused and become aware of the object, are attentive, etc. So only then, when we do that, then at that time certain questions may arise. So we may have doubts and so forth. These doubts do not arise before we start to meditate. They won't arise beforehand. But if we have these kind of doubts, then there are means to solve these doubts. There are ways in which we can deal with these doubts. For instance, if you take Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chenmo, or the great, which in English is called the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. Well, there's no more extensive explanation on calm abiding or on the way to develop concentration. So in that sense, therefore, how to meditate, the causes for calm abiding, the way you can practice, all this is very extensively explained in this particular text. So therefore, it's important to practice, to rely on these explanations or on an experience, on the explanations by an experienced Lama.
상동 초야기 고디 조슈요 인디강라 야 류메다베랑신디 다디쿠 출루바 지부기 시에기 된다기 말 무에네 줄라야 류메다베랑신디 차용고레 디인디강라 류메다베랑신다 류쿠랑기 년다 가리 임바디 세부차야기 셰도 류긴주당 류기 류투마치 차바네 손디 타마 간데스 준루기요바 디 파르치 림바디 이라 가수 제네 아주 룰미네 공자야디다스.
And then with regard to our meditation of the body, also what we should pay attention to is the impermanence of our body. So how the body's changing all the time, how it is in the nature of changing moment by moment. So this is another aspect that is really important to pay attention to, how from moment by moment the body's different, it's not the same. So we should pay attention to this kind of the impermanent aspect of our mind, of our body. That is the next aspect with regard to mindfulness of the body. When we talk about the foundation of mindfulness of the body, it is that kind of changing nature of the body we must focus on. I apologize, I had some problems with the writing device I'm using. But anyway, so Rinpoche explained previously that first of all, we need to do the practice. It's important to do the practice itself, because only then questions will arise. And we should follow the instructions given in the Lamrim Chenmo, as well as we should seek advice from an experienced Lama. And the next step Rinpoche then explained was the focusing on the impermanence of the body as part of our meditation.
미다발라 다버는 셈바 디왕기 레덴 망부지 튜숑두요레스 당아 루지마 지지지지 제추유 다나신 루송기 지렁이 지지지 제추유 산이나니 레가티 진 지유스 지니 파 시슈기 리루지에기 유조지 당진기 제용고레 마세비 레가 망부지 튜슈디 당진기 당용고레 간스나 수수 대샤샤 제용고레 산이 유나니 아니 다오 지마 유스로 디간라 다오 지마 진지 단다 제고예요 말어 다디 당진기 왕기 내가 제라 투슈 침부시 배 인서 우토니 담보 있는 투슈 침부시 제 다 메다바 상당용 디간라 오 다오 지마 버드 데버이나 땡케버이나 다오 지마 지는 지기리 디 이나양 단 다오 지마 마데버이나 내가 계신부터 단다라니 제주를 마도 상니 봐도 데버이나 상니 제주르디 상니 봐도 마데버이나 다 내가 계신부터 단다된 구마주나 지마송 내가 계신부시 부주요이나 세상 진짜기 내가 뒤토了제야당 다나신 수수기 예보的结果이지 수수의 빈도 침부유비 레전 디수 제디 그 뒤에 다다了제토야기 생기 나네 주고만 당야라 메다바 침버디 배 빈도 침부요레스
Now, what usually happens in our mind is that we perceive that which is impermanent to be permanent. We wrongly perceive impermanent phenomena to be unchanging, to be permanent. And that is responsible for us procrastinating, and in that way, for wasting a lot of time. Because there's a sense there'll be time to do any kind of activity tomorrow or next month or next year, we keep putting important work off. We waste a lot of time and have a sense that we will always be there. So we will always be here and there will be enough time to do this, that, and the other. I can do this important work next month and so forth. So having that sense of permanence, of not dying anytime soon and so forth, we waste a lot of time. But if we reflect on impermanence, we reflect on the fact that we may die any time, well, then the thought arises, okay, if I know for certain I'll be alive next month, I can procrastinate. It's okay. I can do this job next time, or I can do this work the next month. If I know for certain that I'll be alive tomorrow, well, I could do this tomorrow. But if there's no certainty, that I'll be alive tomorrow or next month, it's better that I do whatever needs to be done right now, to not procrastinate, to not put it off. So to do whatever needs to be done in time, to do it right away. That is extremely important because in that way, I'll be able to complete a lot of important activities. Therefore, reflecting on impermanence, reflecting on phenomena changing, and in particular, reflecting on death and impermanence, well, that should inspire us to do whatever is necessary right now.
니마 단다 종라 림부치 슈베컬라 나라 니마치 까미 남베컬라 디치 송구도 다 니마 디치오레 스포라치 보라 디송 개구치 다 치다 신지 요라 치다 신지 연로 왕래 치다 신지 치다 신지기도 스타용디 간라 쿠란 니마지 이게 치마도 예사 말했어 아니 디레시마도 대요 말했어 제디 보라 디다 야가 순대지나 다 군가 근야기 다 군가 별라 하장 장무 요로다 장무 요디 간라 디 권고 고긴 한 권고 고한 디상 가서 디마다 디상기 고 나불의 제바다 디상 수다 니지 무시고서 거라 디네번 낭야마 고를 수디강라 오라 아티스 고 감베 오라야 자야기 디치 가사 아티 세티스게다 아티스는 가서다 간데 고긴 한 오라 자야들이 사마 자우디 디리 엔 디라 디고 차부 디시 엔 디강라 도스 나수 상觉得顺着的水机呢，跟过了，现在地过热的时候怕热气呢，但热的玻璃送的呀，真气呢，里面公个查的讲，那些账目查的讲了，全国月上过都省的不认识，其他信息的大用的播了的了，去年3年的，你们几个起码都没有些，因为过上查的大陆的公个查的讲了，单独没对的这个，过查些的定个认识，你其他信息给不晓认识。 딘데기다 동지 송니 어디 순듯이 당가서 네버자니 요마르티 가수바도 데마디 이네 자지디 이름 무시부데기 자지디 시당 고고고르티 간데 센낭로 자지 고고르티 자지 장마세 가수 생게 나로라 대샤샤 순듯이 인샤샤 순듯이도 더 디기卷接인 거
So one time, Chongla Rinpoche, the late Chongla Rinpoche, said to Yangden Rinpoche, he told him this story about this elderly man, this old man. There was a situation when Yama, the Lord of Death, was basically watching him. So in Tibet, of course, it was at that time it was summertime, and because in the winter it is really cold. So this man, he was wearing these special Tibetan boots. So the old boots, the ate as they're called. So these old boots, they were actually not like shoes, like the modern shoes you have nowadays that come in different colors and shapes and so forth. Well, they were made of leather. So the sole is leather. It's this very thick kind of leather sole. And on top of it, you have like the part that covers the foot, and it's stitched together. Now, here in this situation, the Lord Yama, the Lord of Death, was watching this man as he was stitching his shoes. So he was stitching them to get ready for the winter. And so getting ready to get ready for the time when it is really cold, so that his shoes are ready and he doesn't get cold feet. And so the Lord of Death was kind of laughing because basically the idea is that usually we don't prepare well. We don't prepare well for death. We always put it off. I mean, death will definitely come, but we're not really prepared. So it's important to be completely prepared for our own death. So in that way, to not put things off, to not procrastinate, to not get a sense, oh, I'll do it some other time, I'll do it sometime later, because we don't know when death is going to come. Therefore, it's important to meditate, to focus on the impermanence of our own mind. Of the impermanence of our own body. Now, with regard to our own body, if we reflect upon the way in which our body abides, its mode of existence, we naturally focus on its impermanence. And then also, sorry, I missed that part. I think Rinpoche said we should also focus on when we were like embryos. Sorry, I need to switch the volume back and forth a little bit, so sometimes I miss a little bit. Just a sec.
아니 나와카시에당 또 스림베림베얀도
Oh, yes.
슬롱지시네 루니다 손다 딘제 카톨라다 공바지야인 거라 딘제 차인 것도 보고 준요 이나 계제시에 돌아마 돌아지 딘제 지카시에 가시 시주에 베스네 루니 딘제 거라 연구도.
So, as Rinpoche just said, we should focus on the time when we were little, when we were babies, and then we should focus on the time when we were little children, so 2 or 3 years old, when we could speak a few words, when we could talk a little bit. So we should focus on that time. So that time when we were little. So when we were 2 or 3 years old. And then focus on the time, kind of think back of the time when we were 4 or 5 years old. It's like kind of have like this sense of yourself, like when you look at old photographs, the time when you were a baby, when you were 2 or 3 years old, when you're 4 or 5, 6 years old. So just become aware of the change.
마쇼 제디 진배 미바 미제버 제다 미버디 진배 마쇼 제디 진버디 신다 샤용바 이나레 미버 주디 마쇼로 제 신다 샤용바 이나 고 샤용디 고 랑싱기 샤용고디 내 당분이 지 샤주미 가주 상바 이나야 핀도 요마 고 샤용고리 가인스나 디레 들어 마수 단다 생디 한 들지시네 생기 생미버 강라 샤야기 지집의 뉴버디 단다 차상지 투요 말이 생 가바샤니 주는 샤투야 가바 땅니 주는 땅투야 로 샤바다 땅원니가 가바 땅니 제베는 제투야 가바 샤번 샤 디기 뉴버디 차상지 레메디 강라 차자마레베 린디라 다 세미버 강라 샤베 카도라인 다마다 샤용고리 창자미버디 차상 파 쇼르지지니 차상 베미버다 카제니 슐로라 주에기 딘데기 거지야 용구요레
Now, when you focus on your body in such a way, focus on your physical situation, the way in which you described. So when you were little and then as you underwent changes, or how your body changed. Well, what is going to happen is that while you focus on that, you may lose the object of meditation. You may not be able to stay completely focused. However, other objects may appear to your mind, objects that are unrelated to your meditation. And so this is totally natural. Even if you're determined to just focus on your body, it is very natural for other thoughts to arrive, for other objects to appear to your mind. Why is it natural? Well, because right now we haven't really developed our mental ability to remain focused on one object in a single pointed way. Our mind is not ready yet. Our mind hasn't developed that ability yet. So we're not able to posit our mind, to kind of keep our mind on a particular object and remain on that object. That ability we haven't really developed yet, which is why it's very natural that we lose the object. We may actually totally lose the object of meditation and be so distracted that we think of something completely different. That may sometimes happen. But again, it's important to understand that this is natural, that is just natural simply because we haven't developed this single-pointed ability of the mind yet.
Just
딘데 세상 딘디 강라 조디 진배 미바 마쇼로 제디 게침보지 다 디토네 아니 가수 도스 공해딘다.
So anyway, it's most important that we don't lose our mindfulness. That's most important. So let's meditate in such a way that we don't lose our mindfulness.
다 디네 수수수부디 야 롱지 루주 nga chu dun ji ju ji ju ni do sitembe ya long yuan di lu ju cha we ge
And continue focusing on your body as you were younger. So at the time when you were 10 years old, as you were 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old. So as your body grows and changes.
da lu ju ji cha de gang la ji dang ji sang gen zhu dang lu ju ji ge sa de gang la ni kurang gi le ti su kurang gi le ga da kurang gi tuan da kurang gi ta ji xie ji din de jing gu zu yong gu do 아니 수부도 세 루니슈 도 송주 아니 송주 하라 송주 시주 바로 봐도 류야도 다 송주 세마세 딘데 지 상기 봐도 수분도 세 차용을 들어
Then continue to think of the time when you were 14, 15, 16, all the way up to the age of 18. So nowadays, well, you're of age once you attain the age of when you've reached the age of 18. You're responsible. You're responsible for your own matters and so forth. You take responsibility. Anyway, so think of the time when you were 18 and then all the way up to 30, working, etc. Just think of all these changes your body underwent.
다 디네 야도 시주 다 시중가 주바로라고 라보르 디도아 다 디바도 라보르 디디도 다 시주 제 야르베nga 주 징가 주 세마 생가 주 딘데 게윤디가나니 에 동기 당당 아니 바바당 다 짜당 참만 좋은 주연 구주연구도 이 수부지 녜마다 민다워스도 스다 개구차기 따다부터 되는구도.
And then visualize you going through the remaining years. So you're going through the age of 40, you're going through the age of 50 years and so forth. So just kind of in your mind, mentally pass through all these different stages in your life, in the sense of, well, imagine if you haven't reached that age yet, so to imagine you're 40, you become 50 years old. Actually, between 40 and 50, there's not that much change. But once you pass beyond 50 years, you change. Your face changes, it loses its radiance, your skin starts to develop more wrinkles, your hair changes. So basically, the signs of old age become more obvious.
개국이 넘버디 가르 뭐세 두고 자기도. 로 미신다 수양 수술다 제송스키. 개국스키네老人家스키러 용구래. 수수 수수이네 지 수수수부투네야 개국입니다. 뭐세 두고 싶으시. 다디네야 든주 디제니 짜티 수연 세용구도 저 지주명이 자기도 더르르르. 근데 지도 제주지 도 수분 좋아진도.
And then as you reach the age of 60 and beyond, so again, continue to think of the changes in your body as you become 60 years old. And that is the age when other people also look at you as an elderly person. So you're described as an elderly lady, an elderly gent, and so forth. So anyway, in that way, then you continuously focus on the changes as you turn 70. So once you turn 70, your hair may grow thin and so forth. So just visualize these changes your body undergoes as you grow older.
제주 구주 딘데 레인데니 수분 구주제야. 디스트리디야. 다랑 생기 나다 민다오지 차용구도. 아니 다 하나씩 칼라디야. 방가디 녜마다 민다오디 다 베스타마 민다오지.
And then think of turning 80, 90 years and so forth. So at that time, it'll be difficult for your body to move. It's harder to move around. You won't be able to eat the same kind of food that you used to eat, and just become aware of those changes.
갈래 카슈지디 다 수부기 갈래디 갈래레다. 이내 갈래 치슈지디 상류기 침번냥야. 아니 다나신기 녜마나신기 상로 동토에기 뉴바디 냥야. 아니 옹부 냥야. 미기 옹부기 뉴바 냥야. 나요 옹부 뉴바 냥야. 난 담다 냥치시 뉴구도 제주 구준의 레디 뱅세 두그린도.
So the most difficult aspect of our lives once we turn 80, 90 years old is that, well, not just physically that we've grown older, but also mentally, our memory is not the same as it used to be. So our mental ability to think about things is not the same. And also our sense perception has degenerated. So our eye consciousness, our ear consciousness, our visual perception, our audio perception, all that has changed, has degenerated.
다 디네 구주 게네다 rimbe 구주 게 차비 지르 지당 제외나 다 구주 자 딘데 걸라 다미 단동 무친 딩이 디다 괴물이 다 간데 딘데 지진 림베고 총르고로 다 개구 차비 거기 류기 강에 같이 유버디 민강순의 개구 지절을 대외이나 니 세부하고 그래.
음.
And so it becomes obvious, like the problems, the physical and mental problems, once we reach that age, they're pretty obvious, just from what we may witness with regard to other people. And then once we reach the age of 90, the age of 100, well, there are only a few people who really reach such a high age. But anyway, it's difficult for those people once you reach a certain age. It's difficult for you to be without assistance and so forth.
这是会特别更清楚的。假如挨着一个老人家的话，他现在几年，永远他地的，地固然心吧嘞。俺做咱们领地南路有没东西解决仓嘛？定的主要的嘛，都俺做没几年了，用就买的是。
So that's just the nature of it. That's the nature of our existence. It's not something only we have to experience, but of all the 8 billion people in this world,
他逐步
they all have to experience
都是概念主要
this
的。
kind of aging
好了，
process.
他好像学为那港股切图嘛的，但对吧？都港股切图跟重要嘛的是。
So so far, no one has survived this basically. So no one has basically or no one has been able to stop this process of aging. So everyone has to go through it so far.
南路了，有点大的有的，你特别他当兵南路了，那就他有点不顺的，顶着起来的下，苏不给那样是吧？苏不给那样，新不马给不设计，但新不马给不是来用的讲了，上路南路了，俺给过民是上不涨满一不些，上路的女把的，城西的女把当，西了的女把地，娘嘛就不接个特许要的。 如解决过去生的原因那样，前边牛巴当，南区的牛巴地被路选选出来样，被导盲部给踏不及，地特需要人做了。
Now, in general, Nagarjuna has talked about something, and this is also reflected in some Tibetan kind of sayings, that although the body ages, it is possible that you avoid the aging of the mind, so that although your body has grown old, your mind remains young. So this is not just thinking, oh, may I remain young, remain young, or thinking I am young. That is not enough. But there's a way in which you can train your mind, that its mindfulness, its way of thinking, its wisdom does not degenerate, that the mind continues to have its intelligent kind of ability, even greater than that of a young person.
选选这些呢，是吧？选选来差不这些呢，地图个水的，结果强呢上南路了，停车给别，真把当写了当顶硬正的牛把地主修全部也会有原因呢。但我呢，他第十几月，他第别十几进步月，他说没长嘛给他，哦，他还来不多些。
Therefore, it is possible to grow old. So, of course, at that time, we'll have an old body, but we can keep mentally young. We can keep so young and so fit that we're fitter than a person who's much younger than we are. So we can do this by preserving our mindfulness, our wisdom. And if we're able to do that, mentally keep that, then that's really magnificent.
第卡了第二我是呢，单单呢，结工等主工，是吧？且跟这不了的用途是。
So how can we achieve that? How can we achieve such a magnificent kind of mental state? Well, through meditation, through analytical and single-pointed meditation. Those two meditations help us to generate such a mental state.
那俺那是南京，结工起过的， 요공양 안수 지체디고 안수 지에디 가르를 지고스나 충분히는 총자의 지교지 뭐 간데 싸고를 뭐 그런 디기 tim버디 디지기도 가서 그래 쿠랑쿠랑기 tim버디 총자의 거기 tim버지 야든 그거 어디 디 tim버디당 양진 아주 배차샤바이나 싫어라야 싫어 니샤도 녀모진기 싫어당 지 양다베 싫어세지 但녀모진기 싫어 공피든 줘야지 但나시 녀모진기 tim버순 디 공피든 줘야지 차인고도 가서기 tim버 딘사디 디마오 차디고 제야 잠모베는 부군중 차선바이나 부군중기 카바 짐즈에 카바 나로기 짐즈에 할레버도 부드 이상 부드네 취재 신강아 주제웨이나 그배 칼라시 사마고지 다랑로 쿠티치도 거로 이나 쿠 짐버디 로종의 핑핑이면도 어디 디 로종의 핑거 말 그기 카바 나로를 짐즈에 당디 시부시기 어디 디기 로종기 된다 시야라 핀도 디 용고면도 단도 뇌제기도 짐도 공부해야지 시장 안주기 지당기 미참에기 짐버딩야당 지버지에기 지요르디디 지버지세기 유당 짐버딩야 유인이부디 파 카푸치지 파 지부지 로이나 다랑기 짐버 야든 주에 싫어 야든 주에기 더시 진도
Now, usually we all analyze. We use that ability of the mind to analyze things. And we also use this ability of the mind to stay focused single pointedly. However, we don't necessarily use it in the right way. When you think, for instance, of a businessman, a business person. So a business person, they're reflecting on all sorts of ways, they're analyzing and investigating all sorts of different ways of improving their business, of selling more products and so forth. But actually, there are two types of wisdom we talk about. We talk about afflicted wisdom, and we talk about a wisdom that is in accordance with reality, a right kind of wisdom. Now, of these two types, the wisdom or the intelligence that a business person develops is usually described as a kind of afflicted kind of wisdom. Similarly, when we talk about the ability to single-pointedly focus on a particular object, if you take children, like children who are able to use a mobile phone in a really effective way, so they can stay focused on playing around with the mobile phone for many hours. They don't need to eat anything. They can stay single-pointedly focused on this phone that they play around with. That's actually, although it's a type of concentration here, but it's not actually helpful. It doesn't help them to get a better education. It doesn't help them when they learn new things in school, for instance. In fact, it may actually hinder their learning in
부기
school,
짐즈에
etc.
가도디라 수수기 생라 존재요 말에 수수 생라 당진 제기 상루디 잔요 말 부군중기 지무롱구 거의 거당 아니 총장이 수기 총장이 된다라 상동배 카도디라 수수 생라 년 딘데지 상당히 딜레 게닝아 상당미세기 생라 당진 제기 자디잔요 말에 부군중기 지무나라 가려요 그런 지무나 가르샤수나 다랑기 지를 주는 줘야디마도 생라 chen suguwa mara, sen da dinzu suguwa marwa. Xie zang nangyin kumpi dun zhuwa di. Nangyin kumpi dun zhuwa yung di gang la, shi yung bu kari che su na digi, da digi ji zun zhuwa ji ma du, sen la dang zeng gi nyuwa zangma nyang zhuwa da. Sen chun zeng jie, sen ji gang la xia, duan da ji gang sang dan xia sang ba yin na, xia tui gi nyuwa di xi, shu chung jen chi chi ne. Tama sen di ji gang la xia me tu. 借准备牛个仓么娘追下个多，我的第几就买的时候，他现在真做水去，没我几刚下呢，他想让你真不接受啊，现在马天啊是，现在真说那人别判都是，受穷的东西，贵几是马当我接去呢，然后没我当兵没我地上刚追啊，真的结果。
So therefore, in the case of this business person and this child, so although there is this investigative power and there's this concentrated power, but it's harmful actually. And that ability of our mind, we need to turn it around and use it in a positive way. The problem is in the case of the child and the business person that there's no control, there's no actual mental control. So there's no control in the sense the child, for instance, is not really able to do this and not do that and so forth. So whatever appears to that child in the moment when they play around this phone, their mind just follows that. So that's actually a form of distraction. In the case of the business person, it's like whatever drives them, their mind kind of acts on that. Whatever drives that child when they play around with the phone, the mind just follows after that. In that sense, therefore, it's a form of abstraction. There's no distraction. So there's no real control. There are certain material objects, the child, the business person, they just follow without being able to keep the mind on a particular object. In fact, it goes to such a degree that the child, for instance, if you tell them focus on something else, they no longer can do that. They've lost the ability to focus on other objects. So they lose their mindfulness because of playing around with this phone. So it's impossible for them to focus on a particular object at will and then remain on that object. In that sense, they lose their control. So this is the way, if we don't use our ability of analysis, the ability of the single point of focus, if we don't use it in a controlled fashion, we lose these abilities.
개고제 타만도스 시워세 딩고로스.
Anyway, to continue with this mindfulness of the changes we undergo. So we've come to the point when we think of ourselves as a really old person and think of our own death. So once we've died, our body has turned into a corpse.
루기 남바디 일에 체용디간라 담바디라 루차용디간라 남버 후버스 토마디라宣부기 류기 노당 시에 루긴 도니부딘 자그 말해 도대 가속을宣부기 샤기 당의 야부디 냥지지네 다지 무제순르지 무제스라고는 홍부순르지 나부순르지 차용고도 당부디라 노면도 차용고디라 남버 후바스 당부심바 당부 차용고도
So we should then focus on our so we should then focus on the time when we've died, focus on our body after we've died. So focus on our body as a corpse now. So what is the appearance of the body once you've died? Well, the color of your body changes, for instance. So the hue of your body, the color of your body is no longer the same as of a person who's still alive. So it changes the radiance kind of the skin, it changes. So it changes, it turns blue, black, and so forth. So this is the kind of the degeneration of our appearance. That's the first stage after we've died.
number nabase de dine nimajini rudi tima kayim kudo ngasu subula ma dine che nangje ma cha ne magi nanglo la nangje yung digang la nangsna na dun da bu cha yung kudo dine cha yung de tima chi kayim kudo dinangshin number nabe du shi sla yung digang la nima kashi chi ne tima du cha chi kayim kudo.
And then the next stage is the stage when our body starts to smell, to stink. So after 2 or 3 days after our death, our body starts to smell in a way. For instance, when you have a wound in your body that festers, like a festering kind of wound with pus coming out of it, the same way that smells, your body starts to smell.
number pamba number viewers la 아니 수부추 추제지 수부야 뷰디베 순 차용 것도 수부추 뷰디베 순
And then the third stage is the stage of your body starting to bloat. So it's like the body starts to bloat.
다 디네 림베지 카디주 강 나디주 강지로 수비용 거디 디주 강용 디가 안디 수불은 무제해 된 것도 좀 비시버스 수불은 무제해 뭐
Lucy.
And insects, so as your body bloats and liquid comes out of your nose and your mouth and so forth, well, insects start to infest your body.
가르스 그래. 다 무제진이 수부 나로도 사야 되는 거다. 뭐 쉬르기 부인부인을 수부 크라운 나로 뭐 샤용부 인터넷 지진에 수부 사야 되는 거라. 넘버 수변 도시 수기 수부 사고로.
And what happens is once your body is infested by these insects, well, they start to ingest your body. They start to eat your body, basically. And that is the next stage when your body is being eaten by insects.
다나신기 포나로기 주말로서 디수마 된시신데 지마치리 순데 차인고도 넘버 마인 두시스.
And because of these insects, whether they're outside of your body or inside of your body, well, they basically start to eat your body, which is why your body basically turns reddish in the sense that everything that's inside turns outside. So your colon, your inner organs, because of your skin dissolving, so now these inner organs become visible, which is kind of the red stage of your body, of your corpse. So like the red, it's kind of like saying the red flesh becomes visible because of the skin no longer covering your body.
Number 2인도 시슬라인디 간라다 슈르기 두트다고시네 슈르기 소샤틴데기 사시시네 샤마부 사모파 꾸치시네 아니 인라 카시 파 토데비스노 인라 카시 수 토데비스노 사모 토르시신 넘버 2인도 두시시 사모 토르도.
And then the next stage is the stage of your body falling apart, in the sense that your limbs no longer stay connected, but your limbs are basically all over the place. Your arms and legs and so forth, they fall off. They're no longer part of one entity. So that is the stage of the body falling apart.
아마디 주바 마도면 하이 차디기도 주공 강부치.
And lastly, only your bones are left. All that's left are your bones.
주바디양 투마지 샤지 유디비 소리시 타마디베 누나신 찬루도 주바디 샤지 강해메딩 농 강해메딩이지.
And at the very end, they're bones.
홍유디버치로 샤지 유디비 소리시도 주바 유서딜은 홍레딩이지. 다짐베 주바디 강부차네 누나신 찬루도고 예구지 지마야 메세 메딩이 농딘데 샤지딘데 게 트윈 메딩 딘데 찬루도.
And at the very end, well, first your bones, when your bones become visible, there's a kind of oily substance that covers your bones, but eventually your bones will also dry up. So they turn into stones. They become like stones. So there's no longer any liquid, no longer any oily kind of substance that surrounds your bones. And eventually they turn into kind of dry, stony substances.
년당대 어디리스다 주바 차니 딘 텔라 차로 당가 저기 수부통마 차바네 송디 수부타마 세만족이 봐도 아마 주주만족바기 고린디 어디리스 디라 제르르진.
And eventually our body turns into dust, our bones turn into dust. So in that way, we should go through all these different stages from the time when our body came into existence all the way to the time when it turned into dust. In a very calm kind of fashion, we should go through these stages, meditate on these stages. in a very calm fashion, we should go through all these stages, kind of we should be mindful of all these different stages our body undergoes.
다디 미다바 라바 쳔바트디.
This kind of meditation is a meditation on coarse
이나디
impermanence.
시부 핑계를 가지고.
But it's very beneficial. That kind of meditation is very beneficial for us.
상제 중딘 대기야. 치워 미다바 진 송에디 라베 미다바 진 송. 다 단다디 진에디 치워 미다바.
When the Buddha talked about meditating or reflecting on death and impermanence, he actually talked about coarse impermanence. So this kind of impermanence that we've discussed just now.
다디 인데기 내당디 니버 치워서 니버도 용바 땡키버. 단데 가서 공대기 내당디 용바디 땡키버. 니버 용바 니버 치워.
So this situation that we've been mindful of, or as we've gone through it as part of our meditation, that is a situation that is certain. This kind of this will happen to all of us.
룽아기 지라 용한디 땡키버. 디바도 용 말했어. 딘데기 땡키여나 양치 장그래. 딘데 요 말이야. 니버 메버. 딘데 내당 가디 용 말이 니버 메버. 나지라 니버 메버.
But with regard to our own death here, though it's certain, but there's no certainty as to the time when we will die. I mean, if we were to know for certain that we're going to die after 5 years, well, it wouldn't be as bad. But the problem is, although our death is certain, there's no certainty as to when we will die.
치워서야 돼. 아주 참에 동린 제거해로. 참말로 용구로.
Death is something that we all need to face. Death will occur for all of us at some point. But we're not really aware of that. We don't really think of that.
루치니 마도 다 루치니 마도 데 카오리스 양 다오 카시에 마도 다오 가주 마도 데 카오리스 다디 구용데 짠이 원래 제마 되지도 센낭로다 다디 원래 진 수부 낭로기 나사드 딘데기 진기고 주진 망부 초용데 간라 주진 디수긴 제부 용해디 춘이레디 딘 원래 제마 되지 다 다오 카시에 데메wen 다 가르치고 그랬어요. 순리 연구도 센나 지짠 쇠마 되지.
So, for instance, last year, so for us, it's difficult to face our own death, to accept our own death. So, for instance, last year, Rinpoche said my uncle got sick and eventually passed away. And at that time, the doctors, well, first they told him you've got only 1 or 2 years left, and then you've got 5 or 6 months left. But the problem when we face such a situation is that we're unable to face reality. I mean, in actuality, when we're sick and we have only a little time left, we have a really hard time to accept our own death, to accept the fact that we're going to die soon. So there's this sense, oh, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to live for a little longer and so forth. So there's this difficulty, excuse me, there's this difficulty of accepting our own mortality.
다디 랑신버레 지네다 니지 세지마도 김메딩이 중고도 아카 상부스르지마도.
However, if we meditate on death and impermanence, we come to realize that this is just part of life, that this is just part of existence. So when another person dies, we generate compassion for that person, but we also understand that this is just part of life, that this is natural.
치진부 가수 데마데디 나수 라발이 요 말에 가르 데버디 된다 데마치에디 가나수 라발이 요 데베 네거라 진팀부 요버치에디 계지리양 된다 데마치에디 나수 라발이 요
Now, we have no control over how long we're going to live, whether we'll have a long life or a short life. We have no control. However, we have control over making our life meaningful. So, for as long as we're alive, it's in our own hand to give meaning to our life, to live our life in a meaningful way. This is something we can control. This is something we can determine.
두스. 다 류르미네 두스 공제지. 다 류르미네 공야디라 공야 망부양 신다양 망부두. 류르미네 류랑기 어 근데 류세디 인라 도모 초벌 미니 조규웨인디간라 류기 차셰 타다 다기 공부나신 난기 차셰의 사마 주도스. 조네 공부티 이제 류 랑기 친일로 미네 공부티. 다나신 양 류기 지 친니스로 인디간라 류 미상이랑 신인바 류 미다베랑 신인바 다디 류디 동해랑 신인바 디제디다 취다 가른 지용도 동해랑 신인바 디조송 용도 근데 공자수 망부도디 멸라 미다바디 가서 사명원이 제퇴되로 응외네 수들이 차되고라 라베 미다바디
So in that way, we should meditate on our body, focusing on the body. We should meditate. We should meditate in the sense of, and of course, there are other meditations with regard to the body. There are other ways we can focus on the body, but the basis is really our body. The focal object is our body. So to understand its nature, for instance, to understand that it's important to understand that it's made of many different parts. And so we can focus on these individual parts and go through the same kind of meditation, the changes these parts undergo and so forth, kind of focus on the impermanence in such a way. So there's so many different aspects of the body. We can also focus on the impure nature of our body, its impermanence, and the fact that it's in the nature of suffering. Now, this of course is connected to the Dharma, the fact that our body is in the nature of suffering, which is why we should start with impermanence, with coarse impairments, the coarse impairments of our body, because this is something we can all accept.
다 상제 종딘데기 송야기 미다베 된다 조디 진지 내송 뒤냥버들 지비 내거는 지바 지와단 지바다 내바송 지바단 지바다 내바송 뒤냥레스 거리 지장네 주리랑신 지장네 군지디 거리 군존주디 거리 지장네 가바는 모두 쉬워차디 거리 지뒤네 지장네 지바당 내바당 지바 송 두냥 인스도 라니 지제기 주의 라니 지버 지기르세 다디 고디 띵서슈들이 지제기 주의
음,
지제기 주의 수순 지버 지기르세 디 가르이나 사야지도
对不起，刚才中间有一段那个声音没有听到。
There were some problems with the reception. So the Buddha himself has said phenomena are impermanent, and because, well, impermanent phenomena have the characteristic of them coming into existence, abiding, and going out of existence. All this happens simultaneously. So basically, whatever has come into having come into existence, being there, existing, and going out of existence, those happen at the same time. So whatever has come into
나공게 제일 렌치디 신화기 님부 가르 공고를 손에 들으셔 신외 님부디 공야 망부 요래 지당 진화 당분에 말레기 원구체디 계신부를 딜러 가르스요스나 니 시부네디 마지버지 칼라 시부 사야디 마지버지 수부시부 냐우두 차이죠르 냐우두 차니 쇼르 딘데기 줄라 주디제 방야제디 신원 원구체디 차고 로 신원 원구체디 이제 다 디네 딩인 쟁기 공자야 딩 구주비 카도디라 시진 야부징에 진화디 레버이나 문심부 지긴 진화디 같이 투도기 진화 레버이나 진유지스 마쇼 지진이로 진화디 파 레버이나 문심 지진이 다 크기 님부터 지진이 진화디 파 도토바 지긴 가토지 딘데기 핀바 다이디야 문구 차고 디지 다 진화문시 레디라 디레 녜라 진외기 주디라 무벌리스 그러 무버 세디 수부 지구 차고 차이들 가수 니 셔드 니 마쇼 공디라 디차고도 상루야 시다当年마 주어지 아니 수부 지구 차고기 초지 레시시네 구디 좀마 사셔의 지기도 다 딘데기 수구 녜라 수부 지구 차고 차베 심번 뇽두슨 딘데 차베 그 무벌리 거래 다 디지수 신화 레고래 신화디 가르스로 디강라 신화라 니송고로 미벌라 녜나양 가서 녜나양 세제메데바 네고디 세제요 말이로 다디 신화 가서 라바스고래 다 미벌라 네고 미벌 세부 샤고디 세부지 샤야기 나슈메데바 나슈메바스고래 디 신화 참무차데고래 로 딘데 나슈메베 루 냐우두 참무지레고디 신원 참무스라고레스.
So Rinpoche said that, wow, the moment something has come into existence, it changes. So that's just the nature of phenomena, that once they have arisen, they're changing, they're there, but they're also ceasing at the same time. So anyway, with regard to subtle impermanence, this is how the Buddha describes subtle impermanence. Then there has been a question yesterday that came up in the group. So people ask about what is the antidote to kind of mental sinking, to laxity. And so Rinpoche explained that, well, in terms of preparation, if we need to prepare ourselves.
一直喜欢睡，还有呢，睡得太过分太过线了。就是平常啊，晚上也睡啊，白天也睡啊，一直睡，假如有这样的习惯的话，很容易产生比如灰尘。
Sorry, I should translate. So we shouldn't. It's important that that we are in a place that doesn't increase this kind of mental sinking. We shouldn't eat a lot of food. We shouldn't engage in certain activities that may actually lead to kind of mental sinking, just in terms of our preparation. But then when it comes to the actual mental sinking, so first of all, we need to identify it with introspection. Become aware of, is there any kind of laxity, any kind of mental sinking, and not follow it, to not allow for it to continue on. So to set our mind in such a way with this propelling kind of intention that we don't allow this laxity to control our mind. So actually, before mental sinking, before laxity arises, there's a kind of drowsiness, a kind of heaviness. It's similar to falling asleep. Before we fall asleep, our mind is really heavy and drowsy. And only then the actual mental sinking or laxity arises. And there are two types of mental sinking, two types of laxity. The first type of laxity is coarse. It's like when the mind is able to remain with the object, but there's no clarity. So without clarity, but the mind possibly focusing on the object, well, that's the kind of coarse mental sinking or laxity. And then the subtle type is when, although there's clarity, but it lacks force, it lacks the appropriate kind of force. So in that way, we talk about drowsiness in the sense of we talk about laxity in such a way that it starts with drowsiness, a kind of heaviness, a mental heaviness that can be compared to falling asleep, so feeling heavy, mentally feeling heavy. So that's just a mental darkness, and only then it turns into actual laxity. So with the two types of laxity, coarse and subtle, as just explained.
那新人你不的的嘞，新我的身囊了出对你上东的嘛，主因的讲了，什么主不主囊用呀？给鱼了结果的， 배차 샤바이나 오가 배 공제 국가 상분들의 총수 가와라 안 된지그 밀리를 무치 토지지니 리니 제베 루이 투여 돼봐 로아 미 류딘디라 아니 리니 제베 투여 인디간라 아니 리버티 단들랑 님버 방시 두 시시니 베 가르스 거리다 고한다 마소나 베 장내 장도 양도스 죄는 죄기 국가 차상여 돼봐 만세비베 수수기다 가유이변의 계획신이 신년의 대마인다 추진이 진행이 된대지 다양지 지당기 미진이나 나라 국건 된데도 국가 야분 된데도 내려지에도 미야분 된데치서 가용무부 일을지바스 심버 주부차기 유일을지디 심버 중앙랑 수용 그 디기 신외기 디지 니부치기레스 다 디주 가주 상당이야起码 두버이나 아니 신화 전도스 도베特殊죠 디디간라 수수기 심버디 류네야 되네 나가다 베 기본 제송 상버치 뭔가 동상 요라 나가 베 동상 친구디다 센디 이기 온수르지 이기 홍수르지 이기 온을 상당 야면나 심버디 수수 심버디 이기 홍기 온 오마니 베미 홍아 홍세죠로 홍디기 온을 상당 홍 가부지기 온 상당 나가는도 파 예지能给让新的方直送上吧나가다基本上单就是나가다页面的去吧但이기 상을 마다는 지게 심버디 류니야 퇴네 신 나가다页面的直送上吧的신화 진짜 수주버들但뒤주 참아지니 마편버인 아니 공제 파샤고래 공제 파샤니 슐로른주 아니 롱 하바자서 된데 친미 도여서 된데 친 돈벌을 취져 된데 치 수부도즈 양스지 디자인이나 고피 통는这个有点这我都写过的 及接送多。
So, as to the antidote to such laxity, well, we need to basically freshen the mind. We need to kind of move the mind that it moves out of that. It overcomes that kind of drowsiness, that kind of that mental sinking. So, what we can do as the first kind of antidote to that, well, meditate on positive aspects, to basically pay attention, as it's described, literally pay attention to happy kind of factors of our life. So to focus on the fact that we have the opportunity to meditate, we have a precious human rebirth, for instance, we have the opportunity to make positive changes, to overcome negative aspects and develop positive aspects. So to just rejoice in all the opportunities we have, to rejoice in the fact that we have a qualified spiritual master, for instance, or qualified lama, although that is part of one's dharma practice. But without considering any dharma practice, we'll just focus on the good things in our life, just count our blessings, basically. But if that doesn't help, if that doesn't excite us to such a degree that we overcome this laxity, well, then we should apply a kind of forceful technique. It's a more forceful technique in the sense that you visualize the sky. You're like you're watching the blue, endless sky, and this endless clear sky, and you visualize that your mind is in the nature of the seed syllable hum. So hum as part of the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, or when you recite Oma Hum. So it's that seed syllable. So visualize that your mind is the nature of a white hum, which then dissolves into the sky. It becomes inseparable from the sky. So with your mind becoming part of this endless clear sky. So this is a way in which you basically force your mind to become more active, to overcome that kind of drowsiness. And if that doesn't help, well, stop meditating. If you still feel drowsy, if you still feel there's laxity, go outside, allow yourself to be freshened by the wind, wash your face, or nowadays you may have a cup of coffee.
那得调几度的，转到那个部位就要观想
So
那
there's
个
a
部位，
question.
就要观想那个部位嘛。
Someone
说
asked
是
a question.
观想身体有气流动嘛。其实第四个呢，打工给调定下来。 最呢送被误了没被光出给囊路了，第送个民主，但人们你不的民主，呀都是天气今年真不节，你真不年，人家呢丢我节，丢我年，拉呢新不节，今年刚提拔出来，第刚了4个月噻的，第刚了，
인사 말을 닭인기, 긴 닭인기,
安尼，
류기, 지방 연下的
安尼，
送给값수 디도아.
安尼，第苏布库朗给俺说的，南个整个月除了俺说上当呀嘛，西个苏布南不学了，平常人第他人了，先不得些，你让第几么学了，几么地方了，卡最多是师傅卡最下那看下地方先下一点，卡最下突，别你几么之前把那到那先下个嘛咯，因为多自己下个咯，俺说叔叔的面上顶得起月上顺着去。라바지 샤그로 라바라바지 강한 샤워 디강나 신샤 근데 제와 이나야 제와 딩기린디 디 제와스는 다른 소디 나중에 제와디 字面意思没有别的意思
So there was a short discussion about this question, what it relates to. Anyway, in the end, the Chinese translator and
陪住当有的即是那可能的太
아
民主
네
广大
디디레 쇼세디 깜바니야 뒤니용 디강라 담부 깜바로 디네야 냐리디 신바디 냐리디 상당 슐로기 디르다 나루 수부 나루기 차라 상당요 말에 디네야 도스 라 상당 디네 떼워기 태거기 디 상당 심바츠 뒤에르마 수부 뒤에게
so this is about the meditation that Rinpoche mentioned early on. So there's been a little bit of discussion, but it's part of the meditation on mindfulness of the body. So when you go through the stages of visualizing the different part of the body, starting with the area, the spot between your eyebrows, and then going all the way down to the sole of your feet. So anyway, in that context, Rinpoche said, how you should meditate. It's like, don't focus on what's inside the body, but rather focus on the different parts. So Rinpoche started off talking about the spot between your eyebrows and then the forehead. He pointed that this is your forehead. So just get a sense of just this area, although it doesn't clearly appear to you, but there's a rough sense, a rough awareness of these parts of the body. So the spot between your eyebrows, the forehead, and then from there you slowly move down. Anyway, as you slowly move down, it's again not the internal part of your body, but it's rather the outside. So you move through your body and then moving down all the way to the soles of your feet, and then move upwards again. So the soles of your feet, the knuckle at the side of your foot. I call it a joint. It's actually this knuckle at the side of your foot, and then the lower legs, the thighs, and so forth. So you don't really focus on the inside of these, but the kind of the outside, more of the outside. Become aware of them.
个请回放吗？这个请问组织人吧，回放有的呗，考有的，还恐怕是不知道，但我了。
I don't know. Rinpoche says this question. Go further down. Someone is scrolling down for Rinpoche.
和念神可以啊，蛮主持的，跳到外面去了。对。念神师傅是伴随着实际禅修的意识体性的。
So there's one question on mindfulness and introspections, mental factors that accompany the primary mind of mental consciousness that is actually meditating. When we say our mind is excited or sinking, what is actually happening in terms of the primary mind and the mental factors of the meditating mind? Not sure that's the question Rinpoche is reading right now. So how could that be?
是伴随着禅修的意识本性的心所。在第六，正念是的什么地界？和念神是那习近是个就是特别是习近一般的什么的习近。念神的进度。
Yeah, I think that's the question here about mental sinking and excitement.
是当个生恰些人，是当个生恰些人。但生米包可能都下米包可能下谁的准备下过，或者说准备给米包准备前呢，你都做不下的，准备与准备前下，准备给生的米包讲了，看啥？ 没问题，真不真都下。西当真不的西你不的生给吃些的人，真不真不可能光结果的，西真真不可能光结果的。但光结是的贵没多卡啥，光结是吃些基不是的估计没多，光结可能了吃上去多，别那没舒服死了的讲了，我基不了贵要嘛的哇。中国基本都贵要嘛的，我当中国的刚把吃上云的记得舒不舒服过了，现在讲。真把的西京你不的公家人给生给吃些的人，但伊那样真把定人在西京事情呢，身上他得不送药的，公家被生的了，几当的公家被个了真把仓库的，真把月库，真把订库的，西京订库的，定人真库的，定人真是那不大的，那被吃地脏的定人真是个的，
I suppose it's this question that Rinpoche just answered. So she said, well, actually, mindfulness and introspection, they are part of the mind. There are functions that are part of the mind. When we talk about mindfulness, it's that function of the mind that focuses on a particular object. And then you have introspection that focuses on, that checks whether the object is still there. So in that way, you meditate. So you need to, when you meditate, like you need to have mindfulness, but you need these functions. You need all of these functions. You need all of these functions, so they're all part of the mind. It's like when you talk about a person, you need the head, you need the torso, and so forth. You need all these minds, but actually you have three mental factors, three main ones that all work together, and they're all part of the mind. On those three are mindfulness, introspection, and concentration. So concentration allows us to remain on the object. And so you need all three. So in answer to this question, oh, maybe it's not that question actually. Unfortunately, I don't know what the translator is saying right now. It's probably the same. So I'll just go over it again because I went through it really quickly. So what Rinpoche said is with regard to the mental factors of mindfulness and introspections, well, they're all mental factors. They're all part of the mind. You can't separate them from the mind in the same way as you can't separate a person's head or their torso from the body of the person to have a fully functioning body. Likewise, these these functions, they're all mental factors, they're all mental functions, and you need all of them to be able to meditate. You need mindfulness in order to focus the mind on a particular object. You need introspection to check whether the mind is still focused on the same object, and you need concentration, that is the function of staying on the mind, staying focused on a particular object in the first place. So these three functions you need in order to be able to meditate. You need these three mental factors of mindfulness, introspection, and concentration.
差不多，
差不多。
就慢慢想。
Are you done? Yes.
저도 얘기입니다.
So Rinpoche says the
그
questions
동물이 동물 지나서요.
don't appear.
我手机里面看不到提问，因为呢刚才停电了，我在我的前面放了一个大的视频，就是本来是就是那个视频上出现的，电呢也是小小的就在那里， 工作
那
人员
刚才的
操作的呢？
那个
所以呢，我
啊
现在看不到问题，也听不
那
到声音，
哇
所以说呢，应该要下课了，是吧？只能下课了，没办法了，时间也到了，那我们就今天讲到这里，今天下午吧，或者晚上也有课的，那个时候我们再做问答，可以吗？我当俺总之这做的讲了，接着只要真的解决，等到长下年
So
是
in the
路忙不休息的，等到你眼的只要的通过门度，
So Rinpoche says, well, it's best to finish the session now. And in our next session, Rinpoche will answer more questions. Right now, there are a lot of POW cuts and Rinpoche is unable to read the questions. So it's quite difficult with the situation. So let's answer the questions in the evening, Rinpoche says. So Rinpoche concludes the session now by reciting a dedication prayer.
我想就是你就人不急嘛，急
May
把
the
那自己
precious
的急，
Bodhi mind that
急
has
把
not
两百
arisen
面往
arise and
光的
grow,
功德退
and may
而
that
出，
which has
他妈
arisen
生节单节地大
not
定就人就
decrease.
单节大都懂，想就是把刚能所学把地大共进没让住就是急，
So may all the bodhisattvas and may all their prayers for the benefit of all sentient beings
咱
be,
们突击起呢，他的功德皆
come
等皆
true.
用，
So all of you, thank
谢
you,
谢大家，
and
晚
I'll
上
see you
见。
again for the next session.